When was the last time you did something impulsive? Like booking a flight the night before, getting on a train without really knowing where it was going, saying yes to a random invitation, or just wake up one morning and deciding, yeah, I'm going somewhere. You know, like moments when you were alone in your bedroom, surrounded by stress and negative emotions, and then you suddenly thought to yourself, what if I run away for a few days to some places where nobody knows who I am and I know nothing about that place either? For me, it was last week when I decided to go to Saigon, a city 1,000 miles away from where I live, right in the middle of the night, just before a few hours before my flight. And since I was going to somewhere completely new to me, I think this would be a great idea to bring this Galaxy Z Fold8 with me as my company. Now, I know that there's a lot of videos out there that go very detailed about this phone, like the cameras, the performance, and that's not what I'm trying to do. I just wanted to see what it is like to have this thing around me for the whole day and where it's make my life easier and where it doesn't. One of the first thing I noticed about the Fold is that it's super flexible. The way you use this change depending on the situation you're in. So back in Saigon when I'm out and about, I usually keep it folded like this. The outer display is narrow, compact, and I really like this design. It doesn't feel like I'm carrying around this massive slab in my pocket, but it's still large enough to check messages, looking something up, scroll through Facebook, or just find my way around the city. And then there were those little moments when I want a bit more space, I would just open it up like this, and I have the 7.6-inch screen in my hand. I spent a surprising amount of time just watching YouTube on this thing. The aspect ratio might seem odd on paper, but in real life, I actually found it pretty useful. If I want something compact, I would just keep it vertical like this, and when I want a slightly bigger screen, I would just turn it sideways. And if I'm sitting somewhere and have a lot of space, I would just unfold it like this. So basically, 3 different ways to use the same device. And for things like reading, scrolling through social media, looking at photos, or playing games, that flexibility is genuinely nice. Gaming on the subway was especially fun. The larger display gives you so much more room compared to the normal phone. And when I unfold it, it almost feels like carrying the tiny tablet around. Of course, there's a downside on this screen shape, because the Fold isn't built around the same 18:9 display that most phones use. You're not always getting as much information on the screen as you might expect. And when it comes to TikTok videos, as you can see, well, black bars are basically unavoidable. Most of the videos I've watched have these black bars. But strangely, it didn't bother me as much as I thought it would. I think it's because the experience is less about having the perfect aspect ratio and more about having the flexibility to choose how much screen you actually want at that moment. After getting off the train, I spent most of my day walking around the city, and this is exactly where I use the camera a lot more. One thing I really like about the Fold is its ability to use the cover screen as a preview when shooting with the rear cameras, especially when you're traveling alone. Normally, if you're trying to vlog yourself, you're either guessing whether you're actually in the frame or you're switching to the front camera and giving up some image quality. Here, I can just open the phone, use the rear camera, and still see exactly what I'm recording. The camera itself is quite good too. I use it for street photography, random shots around the city, and filming throughout the day, and I was generally happy with what I got. One thing I personally enjoy was shooting in 4x3. The photos just feel like they fit really naturally into the way I usually post and share them. Although I do wish the camera setup was a little more flexible. Depending on the version you're comparing it with, you might missing having the dedicated telephoto lens option. And especially when you're traveling, having more lenses can make a huge difference. In my case, when I was in the art museum and tried to take a closer look at the paintings, but I can't physically get closer because I'm not allowed to do that, I really wish having a proper zoom lens instead of seeing with my own eyes. Speaking of art museum, this was probably where the bigger display made the most sense to me. While Saigon is a sunny city and it's full of brightness during the day, and thankfully with the bright screen of the Z Fold8, I could still see what I was doing, checking my framing or looking through my photos and reviewing videos with constantly searching for shade. It's also just not having that extra space when you're looking through your camera roll. Maybe that's not something you can put on a spec sheet, but when you're traveling, I think that bigger screen makes the whole experience feel a little less rushed. Oh, and I forgot to mention that Saigon was in the raining season, so there will be a surprise on when it rains somewhere. Out of nowhere, there will be a shower of rain, and now you have to try your best to protect your phone. Thankfully, the Fold has water resistant, so I wasn't panicking about putting it away the second a few drops hit the screen. And honestly, that was something I think it's pretty cool about a foldable. Water resistant on a regular phone is something we kind of expect at this point. But on a device that can unfold into something closer to a tablet, it still feels a little more special, especially when you consider that a lot of tablets, including something like the iPad mini, don't even offer that kind of protection. Obviously, I'm not saying that you should go swimming with this, like duh, but for this trip, and especially when the weather is unpredictable, it is nice to not be worrying whenever it starts raining. Later, I found myself sitting in a cafe, and this is probably where I realized the Fold can be more than just a bigger phone. I brought a small foldable keyboard with me, but connected to that Fold, open the phone up and suddenly you have this tiny little workspace, and it is really convenient to use it on the airplane. Now, obviously a 7.6-inch screen is not going to replace a MacBook, but for replying to emails, writing a few notes, editing some text, checking documents, or just getting some work done while traveling, it works surprisingly well. And the best part is the entire setup takes up almost no space. It's one of those things that I probably wouldn't use every single day at home, but when I'm traveling and I don't want to bring a laptop just for a few small tasks, I can actually see the appeal. Although, the more I use the Fold throughout the day, the more I notice some of its smaller compromises. The speaker, for example, are mostly positioned on the left side. When you're watching something, it's not a huge issue, but when I hold the phone vertically the way I normally do, my hand can sometimes cover the speaker. And then there's another thing, when you unfold the phone and turn it sideways to watch a movie, the speakers end up sitting on the top and bottom rather than on the left and right. So instead of getting that wider stereo separation that you would normally expect when watching something in landscape, the sound feels a little less immersive. It's not a deal breaker, and I probably wouldn't have even noticed it that much if I wasn't used a bigger screen for watching movie. But when you have a display this large, you kind of expect the audio experience to match it. This is something that once noticed, you will keep noticing it again and again. Another thing is the weight. I have a pretty small hands, and while the Fold itself isn't uncomfortable to hold, using it for a long time can get tiring, especially when it's unfolded. Some people with bigger hands might not have a problem with it at all, but for me, after a while, I found myself switching hands or putting it down whenever I could. Honestly, I think that's just a part of a foldable experience. You get more screen, but you also have more phone to hold. By the end of the day, I had used this thing for pretty much everything: taking photos, filming myself, playing games on the subway, watching YouTube, scrolling through social media, checking my photos, doing a little bit of work, and just trying to figure out where to go next. And somehow, after doing all of that, I still had around like 26% battery left when I got back home. For the way I use my phone when traveling, like mostly using mobile data, uploading to social media or frequently capturing with camera, and sometimes playing games, I'm actually pretty happy with that. On a more casual day with lighter usage like browsing web, social media, and taking some photos, I could see myself getting somewhere around a full working day out of it. Now, let's talk about app compatibility. Because the odd aspect ratio, the experience really depends on what you're using. On TikTok, for example, 16:9 videos still have black bars, but there's also a lot of vertical or 4:3 content that actually fills the screen quite nicely. For TikTok, Reels and Short, the UI also sits on the side, so it doesn't cover as much of the actual video. Shopping apps aren't always perfectly optimized neither, but the bigger screen still makes browsing products feel more comfortable. And for social media like Facebook, Instagram, or Threads, I personally just enjoy having more space to scroll, read, and look at the content. Not every app feels like it was made for the Fold, and I think Samsung needs to work with developers on that. So after spending a few days in Saigon with the Galaxy Z Fold8, I don't think the biggest reason to buy this phone is because it has the best camera, the best battery, or the biggest screen. Because there are other phones and other tablets that can probably do each of those things better. What makes the Fold interesting is that you don't have to choose just one. Sometimes I just want something bigger to watch a video or play a game, and sometimes I just need a small screen to get a bit of work done without carrying my laptop. And the Fold can become all of those things throughout the day in the form factor of a phone. It's definitely not perfect. The aspect ratio isn't ideal for everything, so watching videos still has black bars. The speakers can be awkward depending on how you hold it. And if you're having smaller hands like me, holding it for a long time could actually get your hand tired. But I think that's what I also like about this phone, and it's just more flexible. And maybe, just maybe, okay, this could be the best partner for your next trip. It's your technology princess, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!